today, Leanne Sanderson and Darren Lewis, and we're going to start by talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, because although it feels like particularly when you've been in, strangely enough, Leanne, we've talked a lot about Ronaldo and the situation at Manchester United because he's done this huge, high-profile interview. It's now gone outside of football media, outside of sports media, and now is in mainstream news reporting. So we need to reflect on that. And it is sort of similar aspects that we've covered over the time. So let's start by talking, first of all, about why on earth he would feel the need to do this right now.
Probably to help like engineering getting out, maybe, I don't know, because it doesn't seem to make any sense for him to be talking like he's speaking. I think that a lot of the stuff that he's said, when you consider the stature of the player and the club and what he's said, one of the things that stuck out to me more than anything is nothing's changed in the whole of the place in 17 years now. You have to only look at, obviously, the owners and Glazers and the fact that the Man United fans have been continually protesting their reign. Is that something that I would look at and think, wow, that's really damning? But I think for him to come out and speak like he has and say what he said, especially the disrespect towards the manager, which I found very difficult, you know, especially when he walked off the pit, refused to play and then walked off. I thought that was disrespectful. And I think the manager giving him the armband not long after that, maybe the game after, whatever it was, shows that he's got a certain amount of respect for him. But it just, for me, it smacks of somebody that wants to do this final thing, what everybody says, okay, let's go. Let's negotiate and get you out.
We'll come back to all the individual points and talk about them in a bit more detail. But just broadly, Leanne, the fact that he's done this interview at this stage, just as we're heading into the World Cup, does that suggest a parting of the ways in January?
Yeah, and I think it's a situation that should have been handled, you know, in the off-season, because it's out of control now to a certain degree. And you know I'm the biggest Cristiano Ronaldo fan, but at times this season, you know, I'll defend him all the time, but I can't anymore to a certain degree, because I play for managers I didn't particularly want to play for, I felt disrespected by, but I would never not come on the pitch. When you start walking down the tunnel and making it about yourself, you leave the manager with no choice but to drop you against Chelsea in the way that Ten Hag did. I think Cristiano Ronaldo doing this interview, the timing of it makes absolutely no sense. I think he's a bit out of touch with reality, if I'm being honest, because his legacy, I think, is being tarnished, because, you know, I don't foresee there being a statue, I don't foresee all those things. Some of the things he has said, you can't deny, you know, the training ground, those types of things, but the way he's gone about it, I've always realised as I've got older, don't act upon emotion. Yes. And it seems to me that he's asked Piers Morgan to do this interview when he's feeling in a certain frame of mind, and then he's going to, I think he'll regret this, because if he did the interview after he's left Manchester United, okay, go ahead and do whatever you want, but you're still a Manchester United player, and it really pains me, as you can tell, because it doesn't make sense to me. So
that's why it seems like he's doing it because he wants to get him out of there.
Yeah, but Manchester United won yesterday against Fulham. Garnacho, 18-year-old, doing well, scoring. Ronaldo's his idol. All of the back pages today, even last night, it was all over the news, is Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, the interview's not even out yet. It comes out Wednesday and Thursday. You know, it's only been snippets that have come out. So I'm going to wait to see the whole thing to make a complete opinion of it. But I think the timing of it is very, very poor. No denying Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the greatest players we've all ever seen. It can, you know, different opinions can say whatever they want, but that's just the way I feel. But I'm really disappointed in this situation. And I feel like it shouldn't be a situation where no one could speak out about him, because it seems like if anyone says anything bad about him, he ignores them. And he doesn't want to talk to them. I've spoken about Cristiano Ronaldo my whole, literally, life, saying how great he is, how much I love him. But when he's doing stuff like this, I love Manchester United more than I love Cristiano Ronaldo. So, therefore, I have to give an unbiased opinion. And, again, I think he's let the fans down. I really do, and the club, because it doesn't make sense to me on a Sunday night coming out with his snippets, and it's just we're talking about, and the disrespect, him saying that Ten Hag's disrespected him, it's quite strange.
In terms of the coverage of it, officially Manchester United and Ten Hag in particular have said he's part of our plans, he's an excellent player. Cristiano Ronaldo has been actually quite strong on his social media in refuting any allegations that he was trying to engineer a move away. He's talked about all
no one says they're going to move away when they're trying to do it.
But he's actually gone out of his way to say reports that I'm asking about this are false, or certainly to imply that with quite cryptic messages. the messaging and the briefing that's been coming through, and you will know about this, Darren, is that from the club, we can't get anybody to buy him. From Ronaldo, there are plenty of people interested. The club won't let me go. And that's why this interview coming at this time is so interesting.
Yeah, they're all intangibles. And when in football, there are lots of things that happen that it's impossible to prove. Because sometimes when these conversations, you guys both worked in the game and you both know that there'll be people who will be operating on your behalf who have that plausible deniability. So it's easy for you then to be able to come out and say, it wasn't me. I didn't say that. He didn't approach them on my behalf. I think as far as Ronaldo is concerned, everyone is well versed enough in football to be able to understand how it works now. So I don't think that anyone's in any doubt that there had been approaches made to other clubs, and you only have to look at the many clubs around Europe who said thanks but no thanks to know that there had been conversations ongoing. Where does it leave him? I think he's done at the club. There is no chance he would come back. We've already seen from Ten Hag's demeanour that he will not have somebody who's going to be fair, no manager would have a player back in the squad who's disrespected him in that manner. My understanding is that at United, Ronaldo, when he wants to do interviews, does them. He doesn't wait for anybody to say you can or you can't. He just does them. And I think listen, somebody who works for a national newspaper and in a decision-making process, the interview is superbly executed, and what they've done is they've leaked a little bit, as you've been saying, a little bit of snippets now, and then the whole thing later on in the week. And it's designed to keep you engaged. So you want to be talking about it. They love that we are talking about it, but we have to be talking about it because this is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and this is one of the biggest players in the world. But there are three things that Leanne said a second ago. The first is that he talks about disrespect, and he actually cited Sir Alex Ferguson. And the irony of that is Sir Alex Ferguson would have ripped up his contract before he'd finished his breakfast on the basis of that interview, because of the disrespect that he'd shown to the club, to the manager, to Garnacho, who should have had his day today, and all the headlines being about him,
and
to
we know
the
that
team.
because we know that Sir Alex Ferguson vetoed an interview that it's still not been aired on Manchester United's own television channel that he wasn't happy about.
With Roy Keane, you know, we know that he sold Jaap Stam after Jaap Stam spoke about the internal workings of the club in his book. And I look at this particular situation and I see a player, in my view, who is looking at a team moving on behind him and can't accept it. Garnacho is a future, Anthony is a future, the green shoots of recovery and the team's winning form, 14 wins from their last 21 matches. That's the future. A team working as a team rather than relying on one man. And the other supreme irony about all of this is that other clubs will look at his conduct and his anger and his reaction to not being a first team starter and say, thank goodness that's not in our dressing room. And he's no closer to finding another big European club on the basis of that, because no club would want that in their dressing room.
As a fan of Cristiano Ronaldo, like I am, right, I feel like he's made all those people that have said he makes it always about him, that I've had to, you know, shut down for years and years and years when he's taken the fourth penalty because he wants to score the winner, he celebrates his goal. I've been like, no, it's not there. But he's validated all those people now because he's made it about him. And that's something that I feel like I can't really defend at this moment in time.
I was just going to say that there are all the things that he's talked about, and we will come back to, are things like, you know, the way that he's talked about the current manager, previous managers, whether it's Sir Alex Ferguson, who's very, very close relationship with, whether it's about Rangnick, whether it's about Ten Hag, the current manager, also about former teammates, talked about the current crop of players at Manchester United and about the situation more generally at the club. And Manchester United, in the last couple of minutes, have released a statement, and this is what the club have said about Cristiano Ronaldo's interview. It said they note the media coverage. The club will consider its response after the full facts have been established. They're doing what you're doing, Leanne. Our focus remains on preparing for the second half of the season, continuing the momentum, belief and togetherness being built amongst the players, managers, staff and fans. Obviously this is unhelpful to Erik Ten Hag and to the players who are there. It's disrespectful, as you say, Darren, to his current teammates and to Garnacho, who could have had a brilliant moment where he was splashed all over the back pages with that late winner for Manchester United against Fulham. But of the comments that we've heard from the interview, the one that has garnered most sympathy, particularly from Manchester United fans, are the ones about how the club has progressed since Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill. It must be said, he doesn't talk about him, but it happened at the same time, left the club, about how the gym, the facilities, everything that he has access to, the food in the canteen. There was very very keen to be complimentary towards the chef as a person. He said, all of that has stayed the same. I've moved on in that time, he said, when I was 20, but the club hasn't. And that, of everything, feels like the most legitimate complaint, or certainly the one that's most widely felt.
I think that I think it's quite a damning statement from him, because not only does that, for me, like talking about world-class players who are thinking of coming to a place like Manchester United, then you're going to think, what, they haven't even changed the facilities in 17 years, and I'm going to go, can you imagine? That means Casemiro must be thinking the same. Ronaldo's, obviously, this is something that's probably been annoying him from the time he got there, about the fact that the facilities are what they are. But again, I have to go back to, that's the owners, and that for, you couldn't see anyone else.
No.
When's the last time you saw a player of that stature come out and have a dig at the club of that stature? To the owners. You don't
former
see it.
players have, talking about the stadium.
Yeah.
Can I ask you,
But like that.
Yeah.
if he were coming back, would it not have been the case that they would have taken him, because obviously we saw
To
this
have a
summer,
look.
taking him to have a look around a training ground, this is where we are now, would he not have had the chance to see any of that?
Well,
He's also got his own
obviously
everything
He said it
as
was
well.
an emotional decision, didn't he?
Yeah.
He said he just loves the club.
And the thing is, you'd have
Holiday
thought...
romance.
Yeah, but everybody's known for many years that Man United have done, the Glazers have done nothing to fix the stadium, build a stadium up. And I think that again, not only for players who are thinking of going there, but for the fans to continue to protest these people. Manchester United not putting a lick of paint on properly for 17 years, changing that place. Ever like this like it is, ever like this like that how it is. And Ronaldo's obviously doing that interview for himself, right? Ronaldo's operating outside the club. You know what I mean? It's like you said there, Kels, he doesn't ask anybody when he does an interview. He does an interview when he wants. He's operating outside the club, so he doesn't really care deep down. The problem for me is that Man United need to find a way to get this squashed so as they can move on.
Yeah.
So as then, and I'd implore, I'd say to the fans, continue to protest, because they do need to change everything at Manchester United, and that is not bringing back Ronaldo, maybe. No, it doesn't seem like, for me, it's worked.
No.
It doesn't seem like it's worked. And we're not talking about just because it's Ronaldo. We're talking about any 37-year-old coming in without even the baggage. Like with a 37-year-old, with a young team, new manager trying to do what he's doing. How does he fit into it?
And I
Even
think
with the
that's-
goals.
I think
even with the goals, it's still...
I agree with Wrighty so much as, if you think about it, he's angry that Rangnick isn't starting him and is starting younger players and is asking him to come on the bench. And there are stories that when he was named in midweek as a substitute, he was suddenly ill. But the fact is, the team is moving on without him. That's football.
Yes.
That's not betrayal. That's not personal. That's just the way that football works.
And that's the way he
One thing I
works.
will say, though, guys, something that's not gaining much traction, and I'm not going to defend Cristiano Ronaldo, but he did speak a lot about the emotional side of, his baby and that type of stuff. And he spoke about not being supported by the club.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in that frame of mind, people talk about money too much with footballers. Oh, they're on this much money. We are all from the same place. We're all human. And I feel like sometimes footballers are held on a different standard. So I'm not making excuses for him, but I'm saying, there's an aspect of, he has been through quite a traumatic time, and he actually spoke about the Liverpool fans, how much they, what they did for him, and that has to be taken from it as well. So for me, like I said, it doesn't make sense, this interview. I don't think to anybody. It doesn't make any sense to anybody.
And what you say is right, and we should hold that to account. He's been through a hugely traumatic personal experience in losing one of the twin babies that he had with his partner, and we shouldn't forget that there is a human being at the centre of all of this. Some of the issues that he's raised in this interview are issues that predate that, as you say, go back to his time of joining Manchester United, talking about the previous manager, Ralph Rangnick, saying he didn't understand why they brought him in. And then critical of Eric Ten Hag in particular, but also talking about former teammates. Wayne Rooney was the player who came in for criticism from Cristiano Ronaldo. And we've seen that when he meets former teammates on the touchline, those that are deemed to be supportive get a hug, those that are deemed to be unsupportive are completely ignored. And I find that maybe that's because I've not
find it
been a
petty.
player.
I
Maybe
was going to
that's why
say,
I find it
you're
strange.
probably better placed to answer, because your job as a former player, as a legend,
Yeah.
is to speak about other players. Sorry.
He just said legend.
Oh, here we go. They're already top of the
Don't
league.
bring your false modesty in here.
Sorry, no, please let Darren speak, please. Go on, Dee. Sorry, Dee.
But your job is to speak about other footballers.
Yes.
And sometimes to be critical.
Yeah.
It's never personal. We've spoken privately about this.
Absolutely.
It's just that you are speaking about the kind of thing that everybody else is seeing. And so it must be hard if a player is basically going to act in a manner that suggests if you are anything other than gushing with praise for them, you are criticising them.
The thing about it is as well, Darren, is like I was quite uncomfortable watching what he done to Jamie Carragher, because when I watched Jamie Carragher's kind of like summing up of the whole situation, it's not a million miles off of where we are now, in saying about how old he is and what he's going to bring and what's going to happen with the youngsters and is he going to respect them. All the stuff that Jamie said has kind of come to be. And so you think to yourself, as a pundit, that's all you're trying to do. You know what I mean? I've got no problem with walking into any lounge, or if the lads are around and I can see any of them and say, no, I'm never personal. It will never be personal. You just try and give the facts. And that's something that all pundits try and do. No one's blatantly going out to dig you out just because.
I always analyse people the way I'd be okay being analysed myself. And it should never be personal.
Constructive
But the Jamie
criticism.
Carragher one, I think everyone made a joke of it because he's obviously former Liverpool.
Yeah.
But then when it was Gary Neville, it almost became no longer funny because he's Man United, and then it becomes
And he's always been
He was
very...
a former teammate, whereas Carragher was an opponent.
Yeah, but the thing with him as well, with Gary Neville, this is why I thought it's petty, right? Is Gary Neville's always stuck by him. And one time, Gary Neville may have said something about the way he's acting and the way he's behaved, which was terrible, walking off. He blanks him. It's really...
What's going to happen to me at the World Cup then if I see
That's it, you're gone now. This is it. It's complete.
I do remember Gary Neville standing beside him when he was an 18-year-old. He'd done really well, and I think he won the Man of the Match award. And Gary stood beside him, interpreting for him, basically, and speaking up for him because he wanted to protect him and the culture around United at the time. Yeah. So Alex Ferguson used to protect Ryan Giggs. This was him protecting Ronaldo. And, you could see that there was that solidarity for him and that will to protect him, and that has been the case ever since then. But I think that we are at a place now where he's criticising Wayne Rooney for basically telling the truth. Yeah. That if you look at the other sides in the top six, they are all sides with dynamism, with youth. You look at people criticise Jurgen Klopp for selling Sadio Mane.
Yes.
And he's 7 years younger than Cristiano Ronaldo, but he recognises you need to keep regenerating the team, and he's brought in a 23-year-old to replace him. You look at City, they're bringing in younger players to replace the players they had. Arsenal, they've brought down the average age of the team. They've got one of the youngest teams in the Premier League. The future is youth. So I don't see it as betrayal. Again, that's football. But Ronaldo seems not to be able to appreciate that and is interpreting any scintilla of analysis around that as being criticism of him when everybody respects his status as a legend.
There's a really interesting... Guillaume Balaguer wrote a biography of Cristiano Ronaldo, and he's posted a clip of that on social media today where he talks about the fact that he is defined wholly as a human being, or primarily as a human being, by his sporting success. And if that sporting success isn't there, then he feels as a person he is no longer a success, and that attacks the identity of the human being at the centre of all of this, and that makes it particularly difficult to come to terms with the dying of the light, if you like. He's raging against it.
Yeah, it's quite a sad situation. It's quite sad when you consider what he's done, what he's achieved up to this point, and for him to not be able to deal with the coming to an end of something. Obviously, it happens to all of us when you're playing. It was happening to me. And you do feel a sense of like, is that it? Or because all you're thinking, and for him, especially with when you read about his youth and the fact when he was 12, Kells, he was taken away from his parents to go and pursue his dream and that, and so he's always been lauded from that age, and so he's always kind of been, yes, okay, Cristiano, and it's happened to him. He's not somebody that's used to hearing negativity around him, and so he's somebody that's continually thinking about it. Now he's coming to a place where it is kind of coming to it. That must be difficult for him. It's something that he may need to go and seek like some counselling for.
The only reason why I think he feels this way as well is because we were talking about this before. Like, doesn't he have a valid point about he should be playing when you look at Sancho, Martial, Rashford? You know, he's not had I know Rashford's just got picked for England, but debatable as well. So for me, when you look at it from a football perspective, we know Cristiano Ronaldo isn't the same as he was, but he's not an awful footballer all of a sudden. And I feel like everybody's acting like he can no longer kick a football.
But there's a
when he's not the same as he used to be.
It's a different the way they play, Liam, when he's not playing.
Sancho hasn't been great. Martial hasn't been great. So if you're Cristiano Ronaldo and you get told midweek Anthony Martial's going to play, who's been injured, had a decent pre-season, been at the club for 7 years.
He brings something different than Ronaldo. You know,
yeah,
I hear what you're saying about Sancho.
Wrighty.
Sancho's
Still
not playing.
Well.
He's injured as well. You know, Rashford's got his form back. And when they're playing and the way they're playing, it's a different dynamic to the Man United. It's a quicker, sharper Man United. And yes, he scores goals. That's what he does. And I'm not going to... You can't knock that because that's what you want. But at the same time, with Man United and the way that they've now starting to progress, like I watched them against Fulham, they were brilliant. They should have been 3 or 4. They should have scored. Should have finished it. Maybe if he was on, he could have scored those goals. But at the same time, they play a different style of football when he's playing. I don't know, Lee.
Do you think that this is about the future of Manchester United and that in the present they're thinking we have to learn to do this without Ronaldo because long term we want to do this in a different way, and as much as he's going to get goals and probably still is going to get goals wherever it is that he ends up.
Do you mind? I'll take that because I think if you look at the numbers that we saw, sorry. I'll take that. If you look at the numbers that were in the bottom of the screen a second ago, they're brilliant numbers for a fantastic player, but the legacy now from his last 2 clubs is we're glad to see the back of him. And that's really sad. Yeah. I think that Juventus, he was scoring goals, but the team were not doing so well. They're doing better without him.
And senior players in that squad have come out and made those comments.
Yeah. In the Champions League, they've done badly, but in the domestically, although they'd lost their way under Max Allegri, they're stabilising again. And they've got a younger team where they're bedding in players who are kind of finding their feet. And that seems to be the case with Manchester United as well. And I just think that it is about 2 things. A, about the future, but also about recalibrating the status of the club. Because I think a big part of the reason why they lost their way is because they were obsessed with celebrity. Yes. And they were obsessed with commercial popularity and you know, they're bringing in the Zlatans and the Bastian Schweinsteigers and the other guys who were in the back end of their careers, but they were generating lots of social media engagement and lots of advertisers and were being attracted, but they weren't players who were going to drive the club forward. And I think right now it's about younger players who probably aren't going to hit the ground running straight away, but eventually they're going to be guys who are going to drive the club forward. He does have a legitimate gripe about the way that they've let, you know, there was some jokes about maybe watching training sessions on Betamax videos and stuff like that, but if you don't know what Betamax
well, that's what I was going to say.
Google that one.
I was going to say, but what an anachronistic statement, Google Betamax. They're not 2 things you often hear together in the same sentence.
This grey beard is here for a reason.
But look, for Manchester United, they find themselves in 5th place in the table, and there's a real opportunity for them to really push for the top 4, but it looks as though they're going to be doing that without Cristiano Ronaldo, certainly in the aftermath of that interview, although maybe more will come out in the long version of that. It seems unlikely. Coming up, we're going to be talking about much more positive things. We're going to be talking about the top of the table. Arsenal, 5 points clear going into the Christmas break.
This is De Silva. De Silva thrashing it in, and Brentford surely win it. Unrestrained delight in that away end.
Back heel for Zinchenko to deliver. Martinelli, good readjustment. Odegaard, 2 for him, 2 for Arsenal. And a 5-point lead at the World Cup break beckons for these top gunners.
Manchester City's late defeat and Arsenal's pretty comfortable win means that it's a 5-point gap. We can't say this enough, a 5-point gap at the top of the table. Look, at the beginning of the show, you're playing it down. You're talking like a manager.
Yeah.
as a fan, to watch all of that happening at the weekend. You love that club.
Absolutely.
And you watch them. Mikel Arteta, you've been on his side right from the beginning. There's so many young players in there who are developing. Feels as though things are starting to come together. They've sprinkled a little bit of Premier League title winning magic in there with Zinchenko and Jesus.
Yeah.
And suddenly, Arsenal look like the real deal.
Yeah. And I think that you mentioned Zinchenko and Jesus, and they're the ones who are going to be vitally important to what's going on now, because they know what it's like to be in the lead and be 5 points clear, knowing what you have to do in the next game. And with the Man City side that we've seen down the years, and Liverpool as well, I have to get credit for as well, they've done what they've needed to do. So when you see Manchester City lose against Brentford, which no one saw coming, Brentford were magnificent and should get all the plaudits for the win, because they went there with a way of playing that Manchester City just couldn't deal with, and they executed. And for Arsenal to then watch that, I heard that they were watching it on the coach and they were cheering as well.
Arteta
obviously
said that, didn't he? Yeah.
So then what was good about that is that
they said, what was the reaction like on the coach when Tony got the winner? He went, as you would imagine.
As you could imagine. And that is like, that's how probably everybody involved with Arsenal would have reacted. And then what you want to say is, and see is, okay, now you've got to go there and you can't lose. That's the main thing. If you win, brilliant, but you cannot lose. And that is what I was more impressed with than anything else. It was a very good performance. Arsenal have had a lot of possession in a lot of their games and dominated the ball. You just wanted to make sure that they dominated the ball and got the chances and won the game, because now it's in their hands to do what they're doing. Yes, we've got this break, but it's in their hands now. They know that if they don't lose or they draw games and City slip up again and they win, it's in their hands. So people say, can they do it? Of course they can do it, but a lot has got to go right.
People
for it
are
to
scared
happen.
to say that, though, in a weird way. I've said it many times. Like, if no one's going to challenge Manchester City, we might as well not have the league. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're beatable. They're a top team, but Arsenal, I've been saying it for like 2 months now.
Yeah,
I've always said that they can push, and, you know, they deserve to be there. I feel like people are waiting for them to drop off. They're like, oh, they need another striker. They don't have the strength in depth. Well,
and even when you beat
wait and see.
You beat Liverpool and say, yeah, but look at Liverpool going through.
Or when you came back against Fulham, it's like, oh, yeah, you can't really win.
All you do as Arsenal is like, just let the noise go on and just carry on doing what you're doing. And that is why, at the moment, I'm very impressed with the mental side of what Arsenal players are going through at the moment. And they're dealing with it at the moment.
And and I know you've been saying for a couple of months, Leanne, and that's what I was going to sort of come to you on, because there's definitely been people saying Arsenal can do this, it's possible. But in every title-winning season, it feels like there's a moment. And this weekend felt like it could be that for Arsenal, just because of the way that City lost that game in the 98th minute, the way that Arsenal went out with the cool heads that we saw in the game that followed, and they go in and suddenly, with that 5-point gap, there's room for them now to step up. They can not relax because they don't want to take that pressure off them, but it just feels that they can breathe a bit.
Yeah, there's a different feeling around the club this season. I feel like even the Emirates I missed the days at Highbury because I felt like, the fans were right on top, so loud. But the Emirates this year has been absolutely rocking. The fans are right behind it. I mean, fair play to Wrighty, because I was talking about Mikel Arteta potentially not being the right man for the job a couple of seasons ago, and how wrong was I? And it goes to show you the patience you can have within a manager, but you can see what he's doing. There's a feeling, and you have to have a little bit of luck sometimes, but the recruitment, I mean, imagine how amazing this would be if Jesus and Zinchenko won the league at Arsenal, not getting carried away, and Pep just kind of allowed them to go over, because it was almost like Pep was like, well, they can go because we've got a good enough squad. But can you imagine if that happened?
That would be a very sweet moment, I would imagine, for Mikel Arteta at the end of the season, with those, and for those two players as well, thinking that maybe City were going to be we all thought City were going to be the front runners at the top of the league, and Arsenal have shown otherwise. In terms of the points that they have, Darren, and you look at the biggest totals that teams have reached after 14 games this season, Arsenal are right up there. They've got 37 points. That's only 3 off what Manchester City and Liverpool managed in 18 and 20. But for Arsenal, at that stage, they are on course, if they average that towards the end of the season, for 100 points. That would win the title in any season, other than the one in which Manchester City did finish on exactly 100 points. This is a phenomenal pace that they're setting.
It really is, and I think that the foundation of it is actually their defence rather than their attack, because they're providing a fantastic platform for the guys like Odegaard and Martinelli and Jesus and everyone else to express themselves. They've got so much depth in that defence. They've got the consistency of Saliba and Gabriel. They've got Ben White, who's been a revelation at right back. When I loved Tomiyasu anyway as a right back, and Tierney and Zinchenko at a left full back as well. Zinchenko, of course, can move into midfield where they've got Partey. They've got so many good options. Granit Xhaka's been a revelation
player this year
as well. I think the fascinating thing about the Christmas statistic is that we've never had so few games going into Christmas than we have had this season. But you can't doubt the numbers that they've racked up already. What we know about City is that they come into their own over the winter months. So in all the seasons where they've won the title, they've been formidable over, October, November, December, January. But of course, this is a season in two halves. So we don't know how the season's going to restart. We don't know what's going to happen to key players at the World Cup. There are so many different things. But in terms of what Arsenal have done, I agree. We talk about players maybe coming to the end of their time at a club without necessarily criticising them, respecting what they've done, but accepting that they've got to move on. And Odegaard is a fantastic representation of what Mikel Arteta wants in a captain. A young man who hangs on his every word, sets a fantastic example, leads by example on the pitch. It's very mild-mannered, very unruffled, unfussy, but he gets the job done. And I think he epitomises where they are right now.
You know, as well, Kels, is the spreading of the goals around. I think Odegaard's the most with 6 league goals. And when you look at the amount of work that Jesus puts in, Arsenal are now recognising that they have to make sure that they're crashing the box. They have to get in the box, and that is why, at the moment, it's working very, very well, because we're getting people in the box with goals. Xhaka, obviously, Odegaard's scoring goals, Saka's scoring goals. So we're getting goals from everywhere. And I think you have to also look from City's point of view now. So if I'm City, I'll probably sit back and say, okay, okay, Arsenal are the runners with us now. It's not Liverpool. Let's see how they go. Okay, now they're 5 points ahead. Now they're the ones that we're chasing. We know that City can put the pressure on. The pressure can actually now come off of City, and they could relax and start playing. But at the same time, Arsenal with such a young squad, whatever happens this season, I'd love them to finish it off. It's going to be tough, but I think they learned a lot from last season, especially the running, and that hopefully will stand them in good stead.
You won the league, right? Is it better to chase or be chased?
I think it's better to chase for some reason, because when you're going in and you're up there, you're always nervous about what you haven't got anywhere else to go. You've just got to keep winning that next one on. And if you draw it, you're hoping that they lose. But when you're chasing, you get momentum of chasing. You can chase, you get closer and closer, and that will make them start to feel a little bit more nervous. But then you get in the lead of it, and then you think to yourself, oh my gosh, we're in the lead now. So this is why I'm worried with Arsenal with the 5 points, is that they completely, Kels, just think of the next game, and hopefully, if City lose, they can win again and get that cushion, because at some stage, they're going to come up against some problems. You look at the Brighton game with the second string, Kels, it looked like, okay, they're definitely going to need some stuff to happen in January, because the way Brighton, with a very good experienced team, dealt with Arsenal in that cup game, I wouldn't say it was worrying, but it was like, okay.
In the Europa League as well, it's like that when they play their
it was a worry
string.
to see the second string and how they were dealt with Brighton. So there's a lot to put into the mix for this to happen, for Arsenal to win the league, and that's what it's about as a fan. All these things are about the hope, and hoping this goes right and that goes right, so it can happen.
But also enjoying the moment, enjoying being 5 points clear at the top of the table.
I feel like they can't. Because everyone's expecting them to just slip up. I mean, in the week that you lost to PSV and then you drew with Southampton, everyone's like, oh this is where they're gonna, fall off. No, they bounced back again, and I don't think an Arsenal last year would have won against Wolves in the way that they did. I feel like they couldn't handle the pressure. The
fans as well, Leanne, the Ashburton Army, and the way that they've got these young fans right behind that goal over the clock end, they're just singing continually. I think that's not happened to Arsenal for many, many years, and they are actually getting these players through it. They're getting them through it. The fans are making a big, big difference as well.
It's a fantastic atmosphere, as you say, at the Emirates this season. There's all that positivity around Arsenal. And if Arsenal miss out on the league title by the end of the season, it's not going to feel any better just because you didn't celebrate this moment at this stage of the season. So you've got to enjoy all the steps along the way. Just to rain on your parade a little bit, I mean, you did say Arsenal have it in their hands, which is true, but they also have to play City twice. So City also have it in their own hands as well, because there's the rearranged game from September the 15th, and there's the game at the Etihad as well that is still to come. So there is, and that's what, late April sometime, I think 15th of April, no, later, 29th of April. 15th of September was the rearranged one that's got to come in, and then the 29th of April when they meet again.
Well, a good thing about that
could be huge.
Yeah, it will be huge. It will be huge, especially if Arsenal can keep up what they're doing, simply because you've got to try and stay in front of them. So then if you do go to City, and we've seen that City can be breached, I can't see Mikel going to play against City and changing anything the way he's playing. So we've seen that they can be breached. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you win the kind of games that if you go into those games and if you do drop points, you've still got you've still got a little bit of breathing space, so as you can. And then it's about beating the rest. The teams like Newcastle. Can you imagine going to Newcastle latter stages? You know, Villa, if they continue with their research. All these teams that will find some form in the second half of the season, Arsenal cannot afford to lose to them, or they've got to be beating them away from home. So the more points you can build up now to give you that cushion, the better it can be for you.
Should we be talking more about Newcastle? They're 2 points off Man City, and they've played a game more, admittedly. But are they in the title conversation?
Yes, I would have to say yes, because they're in it. They're in the conversation.
I'm not laughing because it shouldn't be, but I mean, they've completely exceeded everyone's expectations already. I don't think the new owners expected them to be in this place, and that man Eddie Howe's done an amazing job, hasn't he? Like, he really has. And Botman, you know, shy. It's not just Callum Wilson, it's the midfield, Guimaraes, you know, unbelievable signings. And I think when they had the takeover, everyone's talking about Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, but look at the management. He's developing players, you know, Willock, players, Almiron.
The form of Almiron.
You know, these are players that people think, and he's getting the best out of them. That is, for me, Joe Linton, converting him to a different position. Like, the best managers for me know how to get the best out of the individuals, and he is doing that. So maybe they are in with a shout, but it feels weird to say Newcastle are in the title race.
It's got that same vibe of Leicester at a certain stage. You speak about it because you can't see Newcastle being in a title race. You know, because we look at Man City and Liverpool and Chelsea and Man United, you look at so when you see a Newcastle or a Leicester in and around it, you say, yeah, well, that's going to fall off at some stage. Now, Eddie Howe will not be thinking anything to do with the title because they're just happy to get themselves in a position where they're in and around there. But don't think for one instant that if they're in and around it and City keep drop points and they're going to say, oh, we're not going to go for it. Of course you are. But at the moment, they're very happy that everybody's keeping a lid on what they're doing. But like you say, look at the points.
I tell you when it will take off is if they beat Arsenal, because they play on the 3rd of January. And that is a game that's going to be fantastic after the break, because that will tell us a lot about whether Newcastle are serious title challengers and about whether or not Arsenal are serious contenders.
Yes.
I think it will. I mean, again, the Newcastle are built on really good, strong, solid defensive foundations, and that was one of the first things that Eddie Howe did when he got to the club. New goalkeeper, Sven Botman and Fabian Schär, centre half, have been fantastic. Kieran Trippier at right back has just, he's brought the quality everyone hoped he would bring to the table, and Matt Targett at the other fullback position. But 6 of the 11 players at Newcastle, I think who finished the game, were there pre-takeover. So it isn't even as if they've used all the money to bring in A-list players. They've just been really sensible with the recruitment, and I think that's the reason why they've managed to surge up the table. And when they play that game, I think it's going to be a really tight game between the two teams. But I think the winner of that is going to be really optimistic about what the second half of the season could be for them. But I don't think either side is going to fade away. I think both sides are really strong.
You know what, as well, Kels, with I was going to say with Newcastle and the way that they're playing, it's like the way they've bought the players, and it's like how Man City done it. They brought in the Les Scotts and the Gareth Barrys and the James
Chelsea.
Milners.
The first signing for Chelsea was Glenn Johnson.
So what's happening is, Kels, is that if I'm on the outside looking in at Newcastle with what they're doing and they're in and around it, and I'm one of those players that's looking to come here as a top player, now all of a sudden Newcastle, they'll pay good money, they've got an unbelievable fan base. All of a sudden, this is an attractive place to come to. So what they're doing at the moment is they're laying foundations for players to look in and say, well, that is a place that I could go to as well. It's
Such an
very
amazing turnaround in a short space of time.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't long ago, the hostility at St James's Park under Steve Bruce. And now look, I mean, I thought it was quite amazing at the weekend when you saw all the players, you know, going to the fans at the end. There's feelings around clubs, and you're right, you know, with regards to Leicester, it's that feeling, isn't it, that you get within a team. And for me, one of the performances that sticks out with Newcastle is the Tottenham away win, because I think everyone expected Tottenham to come back into that game, but defensively they were unbelievable, and at times they look like the home team when they're playing organisationally, everything. And a lot of that has to go down to Eddie Howe, because I think people disrespectfully said he was almost like a stopgap manager during that time. Put some respect on the man's name. He's been brilliant. Yeah,
he's been fantastic, and Newcastle right in the mix. The only reason we're not talking about Manchester City is because we all know what City can do and have done consistently over the last few years, and they are very much expecting to go on a fantastic run when they come back after the break for the World Cup. So we will be talking lots more about them between now and the end of the season. Next, though, we're going to be doing our mid-season awards on the Kelly and Wrighty show. Who are the winners? Time now for that. I was going to say unofficial, but it's our show. The official Kelly and Wrighty Awards, mid-season awards. We're going to make it official. Right, we're going to get through this quite quickly. So let's start with manager of the mid-season.
Well, there's only two managers.
I wonder what one he's
going for. There's two managers that have to get it, and there's one of them who's at the top of the league. But like Eddie Howe, and what Eddie Howe's done up to this point has to be recognised, I think. But I think that obviously Mikel being top of the league, no one expected that from the Arsenal side. For me, I probably would go with that, but like I have to mention Eddie Howe because he's been brilliant.
So you're going officially Mikel, with honourable mention to Eddie Howe.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think we're all going to have very similar ones, because I went with Eddie Howe. I think, you know, I mentioned it before the break, but the work that he's done in a short space of time, and I think he's a fantastic manager. Organisation at Newcastle, they look like a completely different team in the space of, you know, 6 months, not even a year. So that my award, but I understand. Eddie Howe.
What are you saying, dude?
Arteta for me, only because he's changed the culture at the club. He's done all of the hard work behind the scenes necessary to get them to where they are now, playing great football, playing with real belief in character. Fantastic job.
And that's not easy to come about. He's done that so well.
And again, in an unexpected position in the table as well. Player?
I probably have to go with Haaland for his the way he's just arrived on the scene. Everybody's saying that he's going to do what he's doing. Obviously, we've seen the last couple of games, it's not been great, but I think that impact has been phenomenal. What he's done. He's already got the amount of goals, the last Golden Boot Harry Kane won last season, I think. He's already got that. I think he's got 23 goals. It's a City side that once they do get it going, you feel like, how are you going to stop him? And he's just come in and he's just answered every single question about what his goals.
We've almost got a little bit blasé about him, haven't we? And kind of
if he doesn't score a hat-trick, you know, so
exactly.
He has. It's the biggest impact I've seen in the Premier League.
Yeah, similarly to what you're saying, but I've gone differently. The man who got the assist for Erling Haaland there, Kevin De Bruyne. I don't think enough respect gets put on this man's name. I think I could watch him all day long.
Maybe for the same reasons, that we just expect him to be brilliant every single game.
And the way that he passes the ball, if he can do outside of inside, the weight of pass, and is it still, from my understanding, he's never won a Player of the Month award?
I don't think he has.
How is that even possible? For me, all day long, Kevin De Bruyne, but Haaland, I mean, brilliant.
Yeah, it's simple for me. Haaland, edge of the seat stuff, box office. There hasn't really been a player for a long time who, when he gets the ball, actually draws. I was at the Manchester derby and he scored a goal and everyone gasped.
Yes.
It wasn't a cheer, it was a gasp because he was just so incredible. Wonderful player.
Go on then, goals. If we're talking about Haaland, who's got the goal of the season so far?
I can't remember the goals.
Which one did you go for?
I can't remember.
You can't remember any of them. Should we come back to you?
Yeah,
we did moment of the season. I did my moment of the season.
What was it?
Which is Haaland scoring 3.
You know what?
Yeah,
You're
it's
right.
moments for this season.
I've thrown it.
Me.
Do you know what else I've done? I've xipped a topic.
It's moments for the season.
Most improved player is the one we're going to next. Did we have a most improved player?
I did.
I've got Xhaka.
Yeah.
I think Xhaka is what he's done. Now he's playing further up in the field. All the managers at Arsenal have always had certain faith in him, but he's been playing further back where it doesn't suit him. Now we're seeing him up front, more in that area where he can create and do what he does for Switzerland, and that it's got to be Xhaka for me.
Yeah, that was mine as well. You can ask the producer because I did send them last night. But Granit Xhaka, another player, like his Arsenal career looked like it was well and truly done a couple of years ago, being booed off by the fans, but he's been absolutely brilliant. And not only the way he's kind of leading the team, there was a moment against Chelsea that he got into a bit of a ruckus down by the corner flag. Now, him last year, I feel like would have got sent off, but he was being smart. And I feel like the Granit Xhaka this year, he just looks like a completely different player. And credit where it's due. So definitely.
When he got the first booking of the season, you're thinking it's going to be the same season. But no,
he's been brilliant.
Matured hugely.
Brilliant.
Darren.
I'm going to go with Almiron. Goals, graft, wonderful player. Derided last season and at the start of this season, but he's responded in a superb way.
Almiron, it's got to get love from you as well.
Definitely. But as we say, it's not official, so it's okay that we can, but he's someone who has to be in that conversation, doesn't he? As you say, with Granit Xhaka, it's an improvement in temperament as much as anything else. With Almiron, you can see it. He's explosive on the pitch.
You know, with Almiron is that, you ask Alan Shearer, I've always liked Miggy because he's somebody that his work rate and some of the things what he tries just doesn't work out. And you think to yourself, you know what? If those things start working out with his work rate, with his pace, it's going to cause some problems. So it's really good to see him doing that this season. You just want to hope that it's not just this season and the next season he goes back, so as he continues to improve. But he has been magnificent.
You know when I said about goal of the season and you all looked at me like I was speaking French? What I meant was moment of the season. Did you have a moment of the season?
I'm going to go with Anthony's little round thingy skill.
So you've not gone for a Premier League moment.
I've gone for that moment for me because that's the moment where I cannot believe how people went so crazy just because the pass didn't get there.
They'll do it again.
Hopefully, like what I saw was a lot of stuff on social media with kids trying it and stuff. The game's about entertainment as well. The guy got absolutely lambasted for what? The game's about entertainment. That's going to be the moment for me because, the skill what he done.
There's joy in it, isn't there?
Joy.
Yeah.
I agree with that. He hasn't played
since. What's your moment, Leanne?
So my moment is Erling Haaland scoring 3 consecutive home hat-tricks.
Wow.
Like, that is, for me, unbelievable, ridiculous. I don't even think it was a doubt in anyone's mind if he was going to score goals in the league, because a lot of people talk about players that don't adapt quick enough. But this guy is a machine. And one thing I love about him, when he takes a penalty, even in the other game when the goalie got a hand on it, he just runs through the ball and he's already celebrating. Like, he has so much conviction in his play and his movement, and he's absolutely I'd be terrified if I was a centre-back going up against him. Different types of goals. So for me, 3 back-to-back hat-tricks at home in this league, the best league in the world. Unbelievable.
And it's his ability to do it that's led to or the way he does it rather, that's led to your moment of the season.
The second goal he scored in the Manchester derby, ball in from the right from De Bruyne, go gadget legs, stretches them out, turns it in at the back post. Wonderful strike.
It's a good goal.
Yeah, he is just a phenomenon, and we're going to see much more of him in the second half of the season because, of course, he won't be going to the World Cup. Norway haven't. Normandy? They haven't qualified either due to the fact that they don't exist. But Norway aren't going to the World Cup either. We are back in January, which will give me time to compose myself, learn to speak, practice my vocabulary, and we'll see you on the 2nd of January. Have a lovely Christmas if you celebrate. Bye-bye.